Hello and welcome to ArcGIS Enterprise What's New at this virtual Esri Developer Summit 2020. We're really glad you joined us. Despite the circumstances, we hope that this is a very informative and helpful session that shows you some of the new things in the ArcGIS Enterprise platform this year. I'm Scott McDonald. I'm a product engineer on the ArcGIS Enterprise team, and I'm here with Jill Edstrom, who is a product advocacy lead for ArcGIS Enterprise. This session will talk about quite a lot of things, and we don't intend for everything to make sense for you as an individual. We understand that everyone has their own role in the organization, and we hope that there's something for everyone with this presentation. Now, we do want to start by talking about support. Previously, every single ArcGIS Enterprise release had 6 years of support total before being retired. Starting at 10.7, which was released last year, there are now some releases will have only 3 years of support. They'll be termed short-term support releases. Others will be long-term support releases, such as 10.7.1, which came out last June. These releases will have the same familiar 6-year support lifecycle. And for organizations who need to know that they are supported for a release and may not upgrade within the next 6 years, this is a very important consideration to make. Of course, some organizations upgrade every year, and this doesn't apply to them as much, but it's really important for you to read our blog about the product lifecycle update and talk to your account manager about what kind of support lifecycle you need for your organization. We'll be covering these 3 releases today, 10.7 and 10.7.1, which came out last year, as well as 10.8. Primarily, we'll be talking about 10.8, but there are some things that everyone needs to know from the last year.
So getting into what are these new features actually, we're going to be going into data and mapping first. So one of the first things that got introduced in ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8 was hosted map image layers. Now I realize this sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. So really what you need to do is you take a hosted feature layer, whether it's in the spatial temporal big data store or the relational data store, it doesn't matter. You can bring it into ArcGIS Pro, and then you can symbolize it as you want and share it as a hosted map image layer to your ArcGIS Enterprise. Sorry about that. And really this allows for fast server-side rendering and really leveraging that advanced complex symbology because the server is doing the heavy lifting and it's not done on the client side like it is with feature services. Also, another new feature that came out was the replace vector tile layers. So now directly through the item details for the vector tile layers, you have the ability to replace it and still being able to keep your URLs in the web maps and web apps without changing them. Here you have the option to choose how to archive the layer being replaced. You can either just replace the current layer, or you can actually archive the existing one so that you don't lose it, and you can always bring it back if you need to. You can also be alerted when the current and replacement layers don't necessarily match up with one another. If you have your data in Australia, you don't want it out in the Indian Ocean, you get a warning here, which is really great. So you don't make any changes before it's too late. You also have the ability to update the style of your vector tile layers from within the map viewer. So when you have that vector tile layer in there, you can symbolize your data using any kind of cartographic symbology that you want and really being able to best represent your data and what your web map needs. Another new feature that came out is the ability to be able to specify your offline map areas. Now this was introduced in 10.7 with just being able to use a rectangular polygon, and then we allowed for a freeform polygon in 10.8. And really you can create more specific and defined map areas that you take offline, whether that's in Collector, any of our runtime apps, Explore, Mission. And it really just saves, instead of taking down the whole base map, just a specific area, so you don't need to be taking off more data than you need to. You can even schedule updates for those maps, whether they're going to be synced every day, weekly, how often you really need to make sure changes are pushed. And you can support a large number of read-only clients. So instead of just telling you about this, we're going to take a moment and take a look at what this actually looks like. So here I have a web map set up for Alaska. It's all ready for offline use, able to go offline. All good to go. Now, if I navigate to my content, I can take a look at the item itself. Here I have the web map. I can open it up, navigate to settings. There's an offline tab here. You see, good to go. And now there's this area also for managing areas that are offline. Now, if I want to manage those areas, I can click on this and actually create an area. Now, I have folks working off the Aleutian Islands and in the Gulf of Alaska. There's no need to necessarily have all of it, but let's take a look at this. I can use the rectangular tool here and set this offline area. Just specific here, so I'm not getting into the whole state. Excuse that, Alaska is a really big state, guys. And from here, we can set this. Also making sure that we have it being synced every Thursday at 9:29 a.m. But there's a lot of excess space right here. Let's take a look at that freehand tool. So I'll cancel this, and I'll use this tool for freehanding, and then be able just to quickly circle along the Aleutian Islands and in the Gulf, not worrying about all that extra sea. And this in itself is going to be saving myself a lot of data, not having to take it all offline unnecessarily, making it easier for my users. So moving on to other new features, there's also new map service parameters. One of the ones is actually clipping. So if I have a land cover data set and I have it for the entire country, there's no need for me to have all that data if I just want to focus on the state of Utah. I can mask part of the layer outside the clip polygon, so that way I'm only focusing on the area that I need to know about. Now if I have that same data set, I can also do a spatial filter as well. Maybe I don't need to know about all the scrub and bare land, I only want to know about deciduous forests. I really have this functionality of being able to do this here.
And these apply to map service operations, such as when you're calling programmatically within your app for the operations such as export or querying a layer. These parameters can be included in that programmatic request.
Exactly, thanks Scott. So moving on to other new features, you may notice some changes with ArcGIS Data Store. So starting with 10.7.1, you have the ability to create a data store item in the portal from a user-managed data source. So you can register a file, a cloud, enterprise geodatabase directly through your enterprise portal. For the enterprise geodatabases, you can even publish all the feature classes as map image layers and feature layers. This can be really great if you have multiple feature classes and data that need to get pushed out. It's really a time saver for you. It also in 10.8, we took this a step further. So sometimes you have an existing data store item and it may not necessarily be in the portal, and you want to leverage the ability of being able to share that publishing functionality of a registered data store out for your groups. Well, through the ArcGIS Server Manager, you can create a data store item and then it'll populate within your portal, and then you can share that item with the groups, and then those permissions will be applied to everybody respectively. Lastly, there are performance improvements, one of the biggest ones being PBF. So that's a new output format that is faster to generate and render in applications. It also has been available in Pro, Map and Feature Services since 10.7, and also in Hosted Feature Layers since 10.8. Our ArcGIS API for JavaScript now requests PBF by default, making it a faster experience for you. And other recent releases have included optimizations such as quantization that load and render large and complex layers very quickly.
I'm next going to talk about some enterprise-wide administration tools and features that really allow administrators to stay on top of their site and to automate really important tasks that they need to do all the time. The first thing is webhooks. Now, you hopefully may have heard about webhooks last year, and you also saw webhooks in this year's Dev Summit plenary. Webhooks are part of an automatic notification system. They're the first step. So a webhook might exist in your ArcGIS Enterprise portal. You might set up a webhook that is an endpoint that listens for every time, say, a user gets added or a certain item gets updated. This webhook will post a JSON payload to that endpoint, which is hosted within the ArcGIS Enterprise portal system, every time that happens. Next, what you can do is work with a third-party system such as Zapier, Microsoft Power Automate to provide the next step in that action chain. Say that you'd like to have Power Automate listen every time the webhook is posted to send an email with information culled from that JSON. You can do that, and then you'll get an automatic notification email every single time based on how you've set up your action chain. These are really powerful systems that can set up that really automate the monitoring of systems for administrators. If a certain action item happens every single time, you're able to know about it and monitor it from a distance rather than having to constantly be watching your system. We're always adding to the number of webhook options that are available, and we intend to expand over time. So please reach out to us if you have things that you'd like to see webhook action items occur for. Another big thing that was released in 10.7 was the new shared instances model. Now this is a really important thing for server administrators in particular to understand. You may understand that all the work done by an ArcGIS server site is done by processes working on the server machines. And prior to 10.7, this was always one-to-one. A server instance was always running the processes for a particular service. That meant that if I had one service that was receiving a lot of requests, there would be a lot of dedicated instances running. On the other hand, if that service was never receiving any requests, dedicated instances would simply be sitting there, collecting memory, using that footprint without actually being used by the system. And because service instances all take up a discrete amount of memory, this can really add up when you have a lot of services. The new shared instances pool is an option to help ameliorate that. So a shared instances pool is a pool of service instances that is not tied to any particular service, but can be used by various services as they need to. They're intended for services that are not constantly receiving requests, perhaps less than every minute they might receive a request on average. When they receive that request, they can dip into the shared pool, use the service instance to run their process, and then once the work is done, relinquish that instance. This means that you're able to really save a lot of memory on your machines, and you can really add more machines in your add more services to each machine without worrying about the memory footprint, so long as they're in that kind of relatively less used category. This is all about optimizing your resource use to match your traffic and to match the resources that you have available. There are some new options that came out this year. First, in ArcGIS Pro 2.5, you're now able to specify which instance type the service should use. Now remember that service instances, shared instances, are only able to be used by compatible map services. That means map and feature services published from ArcGIS Pro that do not have special custom extensions, such as SOEs, SOIs, and certain map capabilities, such as KML. Now, any compatible service is going to be able to use that shared pool. And while you're specifying that from ArcGIS Pro when you can now publish it, you're also able to change it at any time in ArcGIS Server Manager. Now, for new sites that are created at 10.8 and beyond, not sites that are upgraded from a previous version, new sites will use shared instances to be the default for every compatible map and feature service that is published to the site. You can, of course, change this default at any time if you particularly understand, hey, every service that I'm going to be publishing needs to have dedicated instances, needs to have dedicated memory use. You can certainly change that at any time. And of course, you can change the instance type for any service at any time, depending on how the traffic has changed. We released shared instances last year, and we wrote a whole blog about it. So I really recommend that you check that out, the Introducing Shared Instances in ArcGIS Server 10.7 on the ArcGIS blog. We also have some new updates for cloud deployment tools. For those of you who deploy ArcGIS Enterprise on Amazon Web Services or on Microsoft Azure, you hopefully know about our cloud tooling, which makes it really easy for you to deploy and maintain your deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise. At 10.8, we've now released Amazon Web Services CloudFormation templates, are now available as of March. And these include two new templates. The first is the ability to create a notebook server site. If you're using ArcGIS Notebook Server, this template will install it and then automatically federate it with your portal. You're also now able to create an Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, VPC. For those customers who need to have a demilitarized zone or an advanced firewall architecture, you can now accomplish that automatically using our CloudFormation template. For those of you in our Microsoft Azure, I want to note that you're now required to have 20% of your disk space be available before running the Microsoft Azure Cloud Builder. And at 10.8, we now have the option to create a private IP address with the Cloud Builder.
Moving on, there's been a lot of new features that have come out in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. So one of the first ones you may notice is some portal group enhancements. It's pretty exciting because adding members to your groups is easier than ever. You can filter by user types, roles, and membership. So perhaps you just want to add your field workers, you can just add them all at once instead of having to search each one of them out by name. And this also is the product of our better search algorithm here for those larger enterprise portals. You can also directly add items from directly within a group. So if you have a bunch of maps regarding fires in the area, instead of having to go to each individual item, you can go to your fire department maps and apps content and add it directly there, making sure that you get everything you need into that group for your members. There's also been enhancements for the groups list. You can actually hide the group members list, which protects users' privacy. If you have different contractors, maybe they don't all necessarily need to all know about one another. And it's especially helpful for those groups that are visible to everyone. So also, item owners and group managers will still remain visible, so don't feel like it's all anonymous, but just the member list will no longer be visible. You also have the ability to create administrative groups. So this can be used as a filter to help with user management, whether that's roles, licenses, user types, anything like that. And you can even make sure that your members do not leave the group. So you can name your administrative group after a department, office, region, and you know it's authoritative and it has everybody you need to be part of that group. The information banner also came out at 10.8. This is displayed as a header and footer wherever you access your data within the Enterprise portal, whether that is the home app, the gallery, the map viewer, the scene viewer, groups, content in your organization. Admins and members with a security and infrastructure privilege can configure this, and it can be great to notify users of system downtime, provide a classification level, and more. You can even choose the colors, make sure it's got a high enough contrast. Maybe you want this nice mellow blue. You can choose high traffic cone orange, depending on what kind of visibility you want to bring this information banner. At 10.8, you also have the ability for site access notices. So for each new browser session, the ArcGIS Enterprise portal will remain inaccessible until a member selects OK or they accept it. It can be great for privacy statements, terms of use, disclaimers, general notices, and updates. For example, this one here says that your organization assumes no responsibility for any errors or perhaps omissions of content in this site. Now you don't have to set this, but you definitely have the option to set it now. Also, we have read-only mode available for the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. It's been available for ArcGIS Server for a few releases now, but at 10.8 it came out for the Enterprise portal as well. This is something that you enable directly from the admin directory. Portal can still be accessed when it's in read-only mode. Items and services and data can all be viewed, but nothing can be created, edited, or deleted. You don't really want any changes being made. It's more of honestly, read-only. It's a static view. And also settings can't be modified. This can be very useful when upgrading, creating backups, making system updates, and really the goal here is to prevent data loss. If you're doing any of these processes, you don't want more data being created when this is happening.
So I'd like to take a look at those last three features and show how that works in the portal. So say that I'm going to be setting my site to read-only mode this weekend because I need to do some maintenance on my system. I want to make sure that my users know beforehand and during the site downtime that the site will be read-only. Of course, I don't want to actually stop the site from being available. I just want to make it read-only mode so they can view but not change any content during the maintenance. So I'm going to go into my organization of the portal. I will go over to my settings. And of course, note that I'm logged in as my administrator. From settings, I will go down to security. And from the security tab, I will find first my access notice. Now this will show up the first time they access the portal. I'm going to say read-only mode. Please note that this site will be in read-only mode until Sunday morning. And of course note that there's an automatic spell checker, which is very important for many of us. So I'm going to say just accept, just OK only, and I'll save this access notice. Next, I will set the information banner. I will turn it on, and it's already there. Notice that on the evening of Saturday, ArcGIS Enterprise will already be intermittently available due to maintenance. I'm able to choose a color. Perhaps for the University of Missouri, I'll set it nice old gold and black. And then I can note that my contrast ratio is passing accessibility standards. I will save, and then I notice that it's already there. So next, I'm going to go into my portal administrator directory, and I've already signed in as the GIS administrator. I'm going to choose the mode. I'm going to ignore this error, and I'm going to see that on my site I have read-only set to false, meaning that all content can be updated as normal. I'm going to update this read-only to true, and I have a description that says ArcGIS Enterprise is currently in read-only mode. Contact your administrator for further assistance. I'm going to update, and it's now going to set as true. Once the portal restarts, I will not be able to access, I will be able to access all my content, but I will not be able to change any of it. This is going to be really important for me to make sure that when I'm doing my downtime, or when I have my site in maintenance, I'm not going to be worried about my users changing content that I will then have to track down and have them redo their edits once the site is back up. So I'm going to see that I have the site access as well as the information banner, and my read-only mode is set. I'm next going to talk about some apps and server roles. There are a lot of apps, add-ons, extensions, licensing roles that are available with ArcGIS Enterprise. And we just wanted to highlight some of the new ones that have come in 10.8 or big changes that have come to some of our most popular extensions. The first is talking about ArcGIS Enterprise sites. This has been around for a couple of years, and it's a very popular way for ArcGIS Enterprise administrators to make their GIS content available in a very accessible, intuitive way, particularly to non-GIS users. I might have my fire department or my law enforcement who just need access to those maps, dashboards, tables, reports, all those things that they need. At 10.8, ArcGIS Enterprise Sites has a new layout with easier options that make it very easy for anyone to create and manage a site. Now with that, we've added new teams so that not only administrators can make and produce sites. We now have 2 different teams for ArcGIS Enterprise when it comes to the groups of people who are able to work with them. You have a core team, which is the same as an administrator, those who are able to control who accesses a site, who can view it, how it's shared. And then we have the content team. Those are users of our portal who have the ability to go into the site, create it, make changes, add content, give it that look and feel that we want it to have. These 2 core and content teams can be separate or the same, but they're all about the privileges that you're able to work with sites. Lastly, Sites now allows you to clone a site starting at 10.8. Say that you have 2 different departments and you want to have the site for one department that you've already created be applied with just a few changes to the other team. I'm able to clone that site from the view, clone the layout of my site, and move it to this other team, apply the edits that I need to make for that specific team, and then have it be the same without having to do the legwork of building it from scratch. We have a full blog on what's new in ArcGIS Enterprise Sites at 10.8, so I'd highly recommend you check out the ArcGIS blog for more. ArcGIS Notebook Server was released last year. It's been a very popular new feature. It is a complete data science workstation for users as well as a GIS administration hub. Notebooks are very popular Pythonic development environments where you're able to combine your code, your output visualizations such as maps and graphs, and your documentation to produce a very repeatable, transparent document. You saw notebooks being used in this Dev Summit plenary this year. Bill and Indu showed off an air quality notebook that they've created, and then Shannon and Shreyas showed off a new feature about automating their notebook run. Now, currently at 10.8, we've released the ability for you to execute a notebook remotely. So administrators can run a notebook that's already been saved in an automatic basis, And for now, while you can combine that with a third-party scheduler, such as cron jobs for Linux or the Windows task schedule, to run an automatic notebook run on a recurring basis, we are working on an upcoming feature to bring scheduling right into the notebook editor. We also released the new Manager app at 10.8. This is a full dashboard for your notebook server site. It's available through the portal. You just log in and view it through the notebook server tab. And then you're able to look at statistics, logs, the status of your resources, and able to actually change some of the key settings about your notebook site to optimize it and keep it running just the way you want to. There are also a number of new apps and products, those that are integrated with ArcGIS Enterprise, that we have some announcements to make for 10.8. The first is ArcGIS Mission. It has been released this year, and it's a new mission-focused situational awareness server-based app. Mission is a platform that combines multiple components in order to serve situational awareness in an event-based format. You combine mission planning, mission management, and the actual mission situational awareness through things like peer-to-peer secure chat and the ability to locate and track all of your workers, all of your field agents. It does so through a mission manager, which is a portal-based app, the mission responder, which is a mobile app for those of you, for those agents in the field, and mission server, which is a server, specialized server to specifically handle all of the peer-to-peer technology, chatting, all of the location tracking, and to relay that back and forth to those who need it. ArcGIS Mission is a really powerful, and we feel it's going to be a very popular new platform for those who need it. So check out the ArcGIS blog for more on ArcGIS Mission. Also, the tracker for ArcGIS app now has a tracker viewer web app that comes installed with the ArcGIS Enterprise portal at 10.8. You're able to work with the views for your tracker to visualize the tracks that your users are making, and to analyze and make the most of the tracks that you've been recorded by those of your field workers or others who have been using Tracker for ArcGIS. For those of you who use Power BI and have found the ArcGIS Maps for Power BI to be a really powerful and engaging product, you'll be happy to hear that there's now ArcGIS Maps for Power BI with Enterprise. You can integrate all of your ArcGIS Enterprise content, your maps, services, and layers with Microsoft Power BI to derive some really important business analytics, business intelligence, and to be able to do graphs and tables from the content that's sitting in your ArcGIS Enterprise. Last year we released ArcGIS Quick Capture, which is a very simple, intuitive way to capture, to make field observations quickly in the field. It's just a click and drag kind of app that makes it very easy for you to quickly, as the name suggests, quickly capture content, much like Collector, but in an even faster, more minimal way. You can now use the ArcGIS Quick Capture Designer that comes installed with ArcGIS Enterprise at 10.8. And lastly, we have Workforce for ArcGIS for those of you who need to use Workforce to manage and coordinate your workforce in the field. Workforce for ArcGIS is now built-in installed into the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. We also have some new configurable app templates that I'd like to talk about. Some of these you actually saw in the Dev Summit plenary on Tuesday. The first one is Attachment Viewer. This highlights your data's attachments right in your map, whether they are photos or videos, PDFs, whatever those attachments may be. The Attachment Viewer is an app template that allows you to view all the attachments related to your features. You might want to click through all of the photos of a fire hydrant over the last 5 years to see if the paint has aged or if your pipes have gotten rustier. Whatever that may be, it is an intuitive feature-by-feature browsing experience. Another new app is Nearby. This was demoed in the plenary, and it helps you discover what's nearby to you and how to get there. Perhaps I want to look up community resources such as the closest bank or the closest hospital, and I'm able to put down my location and see both in a map form and in a list form what's closer. It can also specify the distance that you're willing to travel to allow you to say where in this circle of my travel time am I able to go. The last configurable app template that we want to talk about that's new this year is the zone lookup template. This helps your users determine whether a location that they select falls within a predefined area or a zone, such as a voting precinct or a water conservation district. It's going to return information about the zone that you've selected, such as the information about the polling station or current stats about your water district. It's a very powerful and simple tool that anyone can use, even if they're not familiar with GIS.
And that has been a lot of information about what's new in ArcGIS Enterprise. So you might be wondering, where can you find more information about what's new and coming? One of the first places to go to is actually our documentation. Scott and his team have been working very hard on this, and they've done a great job. So one of the things you may notice is that it's easy to access server roles through the documentation. On the top, you have the option of going to what component of Enterprise you want to go to, and if you go to server, you can choose the documentation specific to GIS server, image server, any of the other server roles. There's also a brand new applications landing page right within the Enterprise doc. So you can look up anything specific to collector or quick capture and not have to necessarily go searching through our whole Esri documentation to get to it. It's right there for you in that Enterprise section. There's also a new Essentials tab with best practices. So the documentation is not just there for you to show you this is how our product works, but really what can you do with it? What are the best practices for using it? Whether it's system architecture, questions about portal security, it's there for you. Lastly, there's an upgrade installation guides landing page for you, being able to help you out as you're getting ArcGIS Enterprise deployed. Beyond the documentation, there's also going to be our ArcGIS blog. Be sure to check there for what's new, but also check out that new functionality that's available here. There's a lot of information, and when there's new stuff coming out, functionality to highlight, it's all here within our blogs. And also, we want to hear from you. GeoNet is a great place to do that. Whether it's the community helping the community or also our staff helping you out as well, we're there. We want to hear what's going on with ArcGIS Enterprise and also know that you can post your ideas there. Let us know what functionality you'd like to see in future releases.
Now, we covered quite a lot, and this is typically the side where we ask everyone if they want to take a picture of the screen. I'm sure you might want to take a screenshot of this. But this is all the stuff that we've covered today, and as Jill mentioned, there are complete resources in our documentation and blogs to learn more about all these new features.
Now with that, I just want to say thank you. I wish we could have done this in person, but I really appreciate you tuning in. I'm sure Scott does too.
I sure do.
Yes, and hope to see you guys next year. Thank you.